Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffrey Combs.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey Combs, President and Founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. Good to be here with you on it is a rainy Tuesday. It is GMS Podcast time. This formerly was a call known as More Heart Than Talent Mindset, but you are here at the right place at the right time, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I have a very, very applicable topic for today's Facebook Live, which also applies to me, healing and recovery, which is a process that I am in 7 days a week. Letting go of trauma bonds, panic patterns, overwhelmed feelings that lead to anxiety, fear, and doubt. So here is the graphic for today's GMS podcast, that is healing and recovery. And we're going to go over here to, here's what you'll discover in today's training. And the book that will promote and provoke this right here is Healing and Recovery. I'm going to let the Facebook Live populate and move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. And Vicki Lee has joined me. She is first to be on today's Golden Mastermind Seminars podcast. Vicki Lee, much love to you, support, gratitude, and all of the above. Charlie Skinaway, good to have you here this afternoon in these very challenging times in American and world history. So Charlie says he wants to join me on video. Charlie, you are here with me, so good to see you this afternoon. Vicki says ditto. Thank you very much, everyone. Good to see you here today. My name is Jeffrey Combs. I'm the president and founder of Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. Ashley, looking forward to seeing you in 1 month in Stockton, California. The topic for today's Facebook Live is healing and recovery. Right there it is, healing and recovery. If you have just joined us, my name is Jeffrey Combs. Let's move into inspiration. Here is a book that can greatly assist you. David Hawkins, Healing and Recovery. Kathy Shepard has joined me. Kathy is a long-term client going back to 2006. Kathy hired me in Chicago, Illinois in October of 2006, and Kathy has rehired me a number of times over the last, let me think about that, that's going on 17 years. Kathy, honored to have been your coach for so many years. Kathy is the author of the highly inspiring book, Recovering Drama Queen. Isn't that interesting, Kathy, that you wrote that book so many years ago, and it's good to have you here on today's Facebook Live. And Dr. Kelly McNown has joined me also. So here are the topics for the GMS podcast right here. So step number 1 on healing and recovery is addressing silent suffering. Silent suffering is where we stuff our feelings. We pack the suitcase and we drag it around life with us. We fill up the suitcase with our emotions, we handcuff it to our wrist, and we drag it around behind us for the rest of our life. That's the silent suffering that the ego craves to fulfill a neurochemical component called disappointment. And even though it may be challenging to understand being addicted to disappointment and frustration, there becomes an expectation to be disappointed. There becomes an expectation to do the same thing over and over and fulfill the same feeling. And then the ego says, this always happens to me. I'm always overwhelmed. Now, silent suffering is the brooding and pouting that goes on. It's the stuffed feelings and then the brain fog that is created from long-term trauma and drama that is held on to. The amygdala of the brain enlarges. The hippocampus, where the memory is, shrinks. The ability to discern and decide and commit is the prefrontal cortex. And in that situation, you're not crazy. You have brain fog. And that brain fog creates exactly what it sounds like, a clouded personality. A personality that has challenges deciding, committing. That personality then avoids and procrastinates. And that situation silently suffers, knowing that I'm brilliant, knowing that I have the goods, knowing that I'm the whole package, while not knowing I'm good enough, while not knowing I don't have the whole goods. So that's the duality. That's called inverted. So that's what you see going on in today's world. There's a lot of inversions. It's upside down. And it's good and bad, it's black and white, it's right and it's wrong, and it's force and counterforce. And in that silent suffering, there's sensitivity, there's defensiveness, there's brooding, there's pouting, there's locking themselves in, there's hiding out. There's a lot of avoiding that goes on in silent suffering, because the emotional state of the silent sufferer who stuffs their feelings is they're not good enough. And if they're not good enough, then it's challenging to build a business, become clean and sober, reinvent yourself, because of the emotional state that the mind-body connection holds on to, called fight or flight. And fight or flight is that high and low that the body creates to fulfill that feeling of not being good enough. And so if you've been a silent sufferer because you don't want to have any attention, you don't want anyone to notice you because you're not good enough, or you don't want anyone to find out about you, or that energy oftentimes is shame. And that shame we hold on to, it also becomes, I don't want people to think I'm selfish. And so that energy then begins driven by guilt while holding on to shame. And this is why so many people become codependent, and then they deflect from the situation and they go out and they try and fix other people. They try and help other people. They try and go out and serve other people while silently suffering, brooding and pouting, and not getting the recognition that they feel they deserve. And if that's you, that's quite understandable. It is an addiction called codependence. I'm in recovery of that, of over-obligating, enabling, doing more for others than I do for myself, and then holding on to a set of feelings, brooding and pouting, and then that's what creates resentment. And that resentment, a lot of codependents live in shame of the violations they've endured, the trauma they've endured, and then they stuff those feelings, hold on to them, hold on to secrets, and keep secrets close to the chest, and hold on to these feelings while not being able to let go of them. And then going out and taking care of others. A lot of teachers, nurses, caregivers, people of service live in this energy. They're very skilled at taking care of others, but very unskilled of administering that same situation to themselves, because that would be selfish. And if that is you, today is a great day to breathe, release, and let go. So that means in letting go of the silent suffering, you're able to create boundaries, start to establish healthy relationships. You're able to separate your feelings from the events that shape them. You're practicing the skill of letting go. You're no longer the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feelings. You're starting to transcend consciousness by letting go. So here on the syllabus, number 1 is silent suffering. Number 2 are the stuffed feelings. The stuffed feelings that we hold on to lead to consumption. So the 3 main consumptions that the stuffed feelings create is food, alcohol, and debt. And then the 4th one of the 4 facta would be holding on to things. And this is where people become hoarders. They live in chaos and drama and hold on to a lot of stuff from their stuffed feelings. And the garage is full, the closets are filled, and they're running out of space because they have challenges letting go. Because the story is it might be worth something. And even with Goodwill, Salvation Army, I'm going to give it, I don't want to throw it out because I'm going to give it to Goodwill, but then they never get around to giving it to Goodwill or the Salvation Army, because the same situation, they're holding on to the stuffed feelings, creating emotional attachments about outcomes that once happened, worried about outcomes that haven't happened, and then staying in an overwhelmed state of conscious unconsciousness. Now here's a great book that can greatly assist you to facilitate this: Healing and Recovery. So healing and recovery it's a committed process, one day at a time, where you begin to stay in a state of sobriety first. Sobriety is 1, recovery is 2, so they're simultaneously. You're practicing emotional sobriety one day at a time in a state of recovery that you begin to elevate your consciousness. The emotional sobriety means you start to address your feelings of anger, hate, resentment, disappointment, frustration, guilt, shame, abandonment, rejection, overwhelmed feelings, grief, apathy, and pride. And so if you've stopped drinking, that's a great accomplishment, but are you addressing the feelings that led you to the drinking? Or if you are going to change your diet, instead of changing your diet, you want to be able to address your feelings. And as you begin to address the feelings that you hold on to, then the recovery becomes much more organic. And then you're not relying on the gym, on a personal trainer, on an exercise routine. Although exercise can be a component of it, the feelings that you stuff is the most important component of it. Understanding the cause that creates the effect of why you do what you do. That's what will allow you to separate your feelings from the events that shape them. And in understanding that a feeling is a feeling. So when you feel angry, you acknowledge that feeling. When you feel violated, you acknowledge it because that's what it is. It's a feeling. It's not an event. So you're not responsible to relive the event. Your ability to respond is to separate your feelings from the events so that you don't attract men and women who violate you. So you don't attract bosses and managers who criticize you. So you don't attract teammates and soulmates who let you know that you're not good enough in these situations, because you are creating a release. You're letting go. You're separating your feelings. And you're doing it from right here, from healing and recovery. This is one of the best books ever written specifically on this topic, healing and recovery. So then 3 on the syllabus, cause and effect. What you live in right now is the effect. The events that shape the feelings are the beginning of the cause. The fight or flight that you live in, the autonomic response to being overwhelmed, what you live in, that's an effect. The events that created these are the cause. If you grew up in households where it's unpredictable, if you grew up in situations where you're not good enough, if there's a lot of pressure and criticism put on you, this can create brain fog. This can create feelings of not good enough. If you are a chubby child, well, how'd you get that way? I mean, if you're big boned, that's another wives' tale that people are told. Well, who is the food provider? How did you get there? If you were an overweight child, how did you get there? If you started drinking at 13 and 14, what led to that? Other than peer pressure, what are the events that led you to that rebellious behavior? Was it wanting to fit in? What is the cause that creates the effect? Cause are the events. And the more that you understand, a series of events are what shape your feelings. It's not just one event, although one may be significant. But if you grow up by the time you're 18 and you're not good enough by the time you're 18, well, that's going to set you up to attract perpetrators, violators, traumatizers, people who are not emotionally available, people who either reject you or abandon you. It'll set you up for careers of not being able to climb the ladder of the career. You'll underachieve and underearn and then not feel good enough. So the more that you hold on to these feelings, the more that you're going to recreate the same situation to fulfill the same set of feelings. Matt Smith is endorsing and recommending my new program of recovery from the narcissistic personality that I am producing. Thank you very much. And Robert Goldsmith, so good to see you. Robert was my client many, many years ago and attended many of my events in Los Angeles, California. So here we are right here. The book, Healing and Recovery. James Pryor has joined us. I know that many of you have this book, have read this book. So the more that you understand, and Kellyanne just said being chubby was definitely looked down upon. So as children, how do we become chubby? How does that? None of us are born chubby. So here's another term that is used. I was born with a sweet tooth. Were you born with a sweet tooth? Or was that a conditioned behavior? That sweets were given out as rewards. And what about cereal from that area? What about Pop-Tarts? What about Twinkies, Ho-Hos, the Swan's truck, ice cream, the reward system with food? Ding, ding, the bell goes off. It's 3:30. And how about these terms? Snacks and treats. I deserve a snack. I've been a good boy. I've been a good girl. So that's husky, James said. You're very husky there, son. So that's another term. And you're gonna pop your pants. You're gonna break your belt. There's a lot of terms of being overweight, being fat, being chubby, which are also break down being not good enough. And if this is the case, it's important that you understand, how did I get there? What is the cause that creates the effect of why I do what I do? And then step number 4 is the breakthrough factor. That's called acceptance. It's right here. Breakthrough factor. Number 5, the breakthrough factor. Or the healing process, the acceptance. Right there. There's the breakthrough factor. Number 4, acceptance. Because in acceptance, you're moving into honesty. When you're in acceptance, you've moved into a higher state of consciousness. In acceptance, you're here and you're now. In acceptance, you're in honesty. Honesty is the gateway to truth. You have to go through the honest door. You have to open it up so that you can really state your truth. And as you start to understand the truth, your truth, the world's truth, you're no longer in a brain fog because you are in clarity. So that is an amazing situation when you step up from honesty and then you see the truth. And when you start to unpack the story, and you can look at your whole family, you can look at your childhood, you can look at your teen years, you can look at your 20s, and you start to know the truth, then you can begin to have clearer boundaries. You can have a better understanding of why you do what you do. You can have a better understanding of how your relationships were so dysfunctional so that you don't repeat the behavior because you are in this process right here. You are healing and you are recovering. And this is like this. It's simultaneous. It means that it is concurrent. You're doing it at the same time. And while you're healing and recovery, you can also add in production. So there's the 3-fecta. And then in a relaxed body, there's the 4-fecta. So you're healing, recovering, producing results, living the solution in a relaxed body. And when you're in that relaxed body, you're not the mind-body connection to the trauma bonds, the panic patterns, the overwhelmed feelings that you held on to. You're able to separate your feelings from traumatizers and violators. You're able to let narcissistic men and women go. You're able to disengage from conversations. You're able to exit diplomatically, and you're able to breathe, release, and let go. Step 5 on this is the healing process. This is what you do daily. The healing process. You breathe frequently throughout the day, 50, 60 times. You're breathing, releasing, and letting go because you are no longer the mind-body connection of the events that shape the feelings. You're breathing, you're releasing, and you're letting go. And you're doing it a day at a time. You're putting back-to-back days together of emotional sobriety where you're not critical of yourself, you're productive in your day-to-day routines, you're making the bed, doing the dishes, you're doing the simple discipline, opening the mail, paying the bills. Even though these sound so simple, a large percent of society puts them over here and doesn't ever really get around to them. And they live in this overwhelmed state of chaos, behind on taxes, behind on life, winging it and trying to pull it off at the last minute. So Kellyanne, congratulations. Those are really good. Jennifer, good to see you this afternoon. So Ashley, Jordan, Crystal Lynn, I believe you love this content. Thank you. This is my coach. Thank you for the endorsement. Go ahead and send me Crystal Lynn. Ashley, go ahead and send me Crystal Lynn's profile and I'll contact her. So we all deserve to heal and recover. Trauma and brain fog, number 6. Now this is where most all of you are in right now. You're advanced in it or you're advancing now. It means you're starting to understand. If you listen to my content, you read David Hawkins, you read this content, Healing and Recovery, or any mind-body book, any mind-body book or content. You're listening to these people and you're listening to David Hawkins, Dr. Joe Dispenza. You're following my content and you're starting to have a better understanding, well, the brain fog and the panic patterns you've held on to are going to do of violence, beatings, shamings, guiltings, criticisms, gaslighting, and ghosting that you've experienced. And if it happens frequently and you continue to go into fight or flight, you just keep shrinking further and further, and you're like this: hi, nice to meet you, I have no energy. So that's the brain fog that we live in. Then we can't remember names, dates, places, spaces, and then we say, I'm horrible with memory. Not necessarily. You have challenges with brain fog, and it's trauma bonds that you've held on to. Breathe, release, and let go. Back-to-back days of consistent sobriety recovery will start to alleviate some of it. The books you read, the content you master, the emotions that you start to let go of, you start to have a better command of your emotional state. You're present. You're not reacting to situations. You're not angry the way you were. You're not feeling violated. You're not finding ways to be disappointed. You're a lot more present. I mean, the brain fog begins to lift. And Jennifer says Louise Hay is amazing, as well as Dr. David Hawkins. Yes, I've been a devotee of Dr. David Hawkins for years, but Louise Hay, going back to 1988, I highly recommend her book, You Can Heal Your Life. And then number 7 right here, always letting go. I've seen many of you write it. Those of you who saw me speak live, I consistently endorsed always letting go as a skill. I am always letting go. I am always letting go. It's an affirmation. And in always letting go, it means instead of saying I'm always overwhelmed, by saying you're edifying that you're always letting go. So you're speaking into existence a reality that you are concurrently mastering. You're in acceptance, you're breathing, you're releasing, you're healing, you're letting go, you're separating your feelings from the events. You're not personalizing situations as frequently. You're not as angry as you used to be. You don't plot and plan revenge to get even. You're able to easily and effortlessly let go. Now, in that state, your bounce back ability becomes off the charts. I mean, you're like this. You're like in it right here, right now. And in that state of recovery, sobriety, and consciousness, you're beginning to always let go. My name is Jeffery Combs, president and founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. If you are new to my Facebook Live this afternoon, thank you for being here. In about 30 seconds, I'm going to hit the record button, and it will be available for playback for you. If you are an existing client or a former client and would like to add on your existing coaching or rehire me to be your coach, feel free to reach out to me. If you're new, I offer free 20-minute coaching sessions. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll be back here at 9 p.m. tonight Pacific, and at 6 o'clock Pacific, I will be hosting the Recovery from Narcissistic Personalities and Adult Child of Narcissists. Thank you very much. Kellyanne, you are welcome. I am honored to be your coach. Have a great afternoon, everyone.